way. You really like there's little minute things that I think an audience or even other crafts folks might forget. Like we were talking to someone earlier today and they're like, oh, if someone in dialogue says a lyric from a song, that's something you have to deal with. And it's like, yes, that is
Wow.
exactly something we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Lindsay, fill in any blanks I left off.
I mean, what? There was like no blanks there. Oh, here's one blank. Yeah, if you you have a character who might need to play an instrument, well, does the actor play that instrument? They may need some training. Like, really that, it can get very minute and it can get very broad.
Of course. So, I mean, are you a department head? Is that how you would classify yourself? Are you kind of a freelance? Like, do you have a team? Is, I guess, my question.
I mean, it may be a controversial thing to say, but I think it depends on the setup of the production. But in theory, yes, we are department heads. Music supervisors are effectively the head of the music department.
Right.
Sometimes
That's what
it
it
has
sounds
its own department, and sometimes it's officially classified under post-production, even though there's plenty of times where that work is happening in development or pre-production and production. But it really can sometimes vary depending on how that crew sheet is assembled at the end of the day.
Because
Okay.
Heather,
Yeah.
you mentioned you worked from intern to supervisor. Was there a scale in between that, or did you just hop from one to the other?
Oh no, I went from intern, unpaid intern to, part-time employee with a very specific set of hours that I always worked past not because they forced me, but because I was just so passionate about what I was learning and getting to be a part of, to then being, full-time. I would never officially had the role of like assistant. We always like kind of internally referred to myself as like an apprentice. It wasn't an official title, but from like because I was working effectively under an existing music supervisor. So we always kind of jokingly refer to me as an apprentice, but the official title that would be in credits and on a crew sheet would really be like music assistant, then up to music coordinator, then up to music supervisor.
Gotcha. I really think they should put apprentice in there because music is wizardry, and so why wouldn't you allow yourself?
Honestly,
Well, it is
agree with you.
also-
Apprentice really should be used more across the board.
It's just such an academic word, but I feel like that's exactly what you learn by working with somebody who does it. And that's really the best way. Like if you're in the room, you hear all the conversations they're having, you're on all the emails they're on. It's a really great way to learn as, when you're an assistant or a coordinator.
Yeah, 100%. Been an
It's
assistant.
not the kind of job that you just read a book and then there you go. Or even, I have a degree. I have a Bachelor of Science in music industry, and I took a class on music supervision, and that helps give you a framework. But
Yeah.
at no point, I learned so much more in 3 months of it as an unpaid intern than I did at my very expensive USC music supervision class.
Of course.
Something that every single day, even for us now, we learn something new, or we have a different kind of problem that we need to solve, and we're able to use the knowledge we've both learned from 2 decades of doing this to be able to apply that into our craft.
Wow. Yeah, the experience is really how we learn the best. My life has shown me that too. So I'm happy that you are, where you are through that experience. I mean, I was taking notes as you were listing the scope of your job, and I'm just, gobsmacked because you really are, your fingers are in so much of the process. Where do we even begin? I mean, is there a thing you would say you are doing most in your job, or is it really, it's just such a variety of tasks at any given point of the process?
I'm like emailing.
Emailing, yeah.
I was going to say expectation management.
Okay, that's a good one. That's huge, I can imagine, because that's that's across the studio, the producers, the director, anyone who's you got their hopes set high for acquiring the rights to a song, or that makes sense. Expectation management.
Well, because I also think part of our responsibility and how we can help is our experience. We kind of know, okay, what artists might be difficult to license, or what copyrights are going to be really prohibitively expensive, or what copyrights are popular, but actually quite flexible when it comes to licensing or fees. So, that can be really helpful in setting expectations.
100%. I'm curious too what because I know budget is determined, in so many factors, but is there a general budget that is allocated for music in productions? I know based on tiers it obviously varies, but do you notice if you're kind of given, a lot or a little?
It really runs the gamut, I would say. I mean, it feels like these days music budgets are a little bit smaller, but in film, it also usually depends on the entire budget of the film. There's no magic formula. I feel like it used to be 10%, but that doesn't happen anymore. So I'm like, I always end up on indie films, so the budgets are usually pretty lean.
Yeah.
And in television, some shows, like when I worked on The Royals, they gave us a tiny budget at first, and they were like I had worked with the showrunners before and the executive producers, so I was like, these guys need more money, and the executive producers were also like, we need more money. Like, we use music, we use a lot of songs. We're not using like 3 songs and the rest is score. We're using like 8 songs an episode. So this, like, how you're using music and what kind of music you're using factors in a lot.
Okay. Yeah, of course. I'm going to take a quick second to, refresh the room because we've had a couple new listeners come in, and I just want to say hello to everyone and give everybody a big thanks. Victoria Fairbanks, Victoria Porter, thanks for your presence here this evening. We do have a couple of questions, Heather and Lindsay, in the chat. So before we continue our conversation, I wanted to give a shout out to Camille, who's asked a question, and then I'll get Mike's question in here too. Camille asks, what top tools do you use daily in your profession?
Heather? I have a very unsexy answer.
Both of them are technically kind of unsexy. I would say, a big one is, our email clients. So that's really where, kind of, as Lindsay already mentioned, she spends a lot of time on email. We all kind of spend a lot of time on email. So not super sexy. Google Suites gets used a lot, though I'm still like OG and using, Microsoft and Word and Excel.
Yes, Excel for sure.
Excel, so much Excel, so much spreadsheeting. I've gotten really obsessed over the last couple years with a program called Airtable that is just really helped me organize so much in my life, and certainly on projects that I'm on. I'm using that in a way that I used to use Excel and even kind of Google Sheets, although I still kind of use both of those in different capacities. I use a program called Swinzian as kind of my music kind of database. Lindsay and I were, I finally got Lindsay to move to Swinzian after many years of trying to convince her to.
I was on iTunes until basically March. I didn't upgrade it because I was like, I live in MP3 land and I love the playlist.
We literally could not upgrade her computer because of it. But, we both were like old school, like iTunes users for our kind of library, our main hub, and where we're building playlists and doing all of that. So now we're both kind of using Swinzian. There are other platforms to use, but that's the one that we both kind of like. What else? What am I forgetting?
Dropbox. I use both Dropbox and Box, but like I sync Dropbox to my desktop, and that's where I like store all my approvals, and even where I put songs when I'm going to send like a playlist to editors or a producer.
Same. I use Dropbox and Box as well.
Wow. Okay, so that's a slew of tools. You've got quite the belt. I imagine there's so much of your life is listening to music and sourcing new music and just exploring. Is that accurate? Because you want to be fresh, right? To have access in your brains to new artists, or am I incorrect in that assumption?
I mean, the good days are the days we get to listen to music.
Yeah,
it's true. I mean, like, I feel like it's like a little bit sad. There are days that go by where you're not listening to a ton, or you're watching a cut, so you're listening to music that was already put in and identifying it. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of a blend of keeping up with stuff, and then I find that I'm really listening through the filter of what my projects need. So if I'm working on Virgin River, we use a ton of singer-songwriter and songs that like have kind of like a very organic, warm feel. So if I see, we get emails all day long sending us new music, whether it's indie artist, major label, major publisher. So if something said, you know, if I use a lot of music by the Lumineers and I see an email like, listen to it, if you like the Lumineers, I might click on it because that might be something my show that'll work for my show, right? And if
Okay.
when I worked on Shadowhunters, we like to use things that were not organic at all and very like electronic and dark and moody. So I was picking up on different things. So I definitely have that lens. And then obviously there's like your personal, I'm like, oh, a new album by Middle Kids? Like, great. I want to listen to that, you know?
For sure. Is that would you say that's the same for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always kind of listening to music in different kind of ways. I do tend to say how I listen to music and what music I'm listening to is often really dependent on the nature of the projects I'm on. Just because there's only so much time in the day, and so you are kind of multitasking. You know, when I'm working on like a period piece that's taking place in like 1935, then I'm probably not really going through too much new music unless it's because my mind needs a break from that. Although
Right.
there's oftentimes, and this might be a question you ask later, you know, when I need a break from, you know, the constant music listening, I'm probably listening to a podcast or an audiobook or silence or something
Yep.
just as a means of kind of mentally resetting, you know. So there's a lot of like very specific project needs that you're kind of taking in, and the rest of the time, you know, yeah, it's important for us in our role, you know, as music supervisor to be aware of what's going on in music at all times, so that as soon as the filmmaker makes a reference to Chapel Roan, you're able to say, yes, I do know that. I'm aware of that reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
They call something brat, you want to know and be able to make a joke in response back to it. You
Of
know?
course.
So
Okay.
kind of, you know, being aware of trends or being aware of what's going on is essential to the job in terms of current trends, but also in terms of just having an understanding of the musical landscape throughout history.
Well said.
I bet Chapel Roan songs are very expensive to clear.
I haven't
you
seen
know,
one yet, so I don't know.
I cleared one early this summer and it was right before she blew up. It was really interesting. It was like her label knew it was coming because Exo Kitty is a project that's definitely like a teen property. Like our audience is very young, which is kind of a music consuming audience. And it's also we have LGBTQ characters, which is something that Chapel Roan wanted to be part of. So yeah, a lot of it like depends on timing. Like I feel like we licensed the song like a week before she blew up, so we probably got like the last deal on Chapel Roan.
Yeah, no kidding. It reminds me of when, you know, every single production in the world was using Billie Eilish songs, and maybe they still are.
They still are.
I feel like there was a moment where she was, you know, new, and so therefore somewhat more affordable. And then, but I just remember it blew up.
Yeah. Actually, you know, we even used we had like an a cappella group singing something for Valentine's in the To All the Boys 2 movie, and we picked Ocean Eyes, and it was, you know, we filmed and licensed it like a month before Bad Guy came out, and she blew up.
Wow.
So, and it was a song that had been licensed many times, so it wasn't like cheap by any means, but yeah. But that's you know, that's part of the job too, right? Like you want to really have your pulse on things so that you get to it before it blows up.
Well, yeah, and it's hard to predict though, right? When someone's going to blow up, because it can just happen.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
it's impossible. It's impossible to try and make that prediction in advance, despite the times that, you know, every now and then we're asked to do that. What's going to be the thing that blows up this summer? I don't know.
Like following the music stock
What I
market
think
or something.
Good. Yeah, it is. Oh my God, that's a really great way of putting it, you know? And I think one of the important factors in that is really that, you know, and anyone on the production side of things can understand is, you know, when Lindsay's licensing that song that's being used that a character is singing, you're shooting that so far in advance, right? Like you still have to get through all of post-production. If it's on a streamer, there's probably additional months after you finish mixing everything before it's even released. So
Mm.
you could have several to many, many months to a year between the moment that you shoot to camera and have gotten the song cleared in advance to when the rest of the world even sees it. And there's always kind of this sense in our role of, by the time this comes out, is it just them blowing up so it feels like we helped that happen?
Mm.
Or is it already like it blew up and it's already like passe and suddenly you look like you're late to the game?
Yeah. You're like out of style now.
Yeah, you're out of style, even though you were ahead of everyone else. It just took a year for the world to see it.
Right.
At least you don't have to take responsibility for that, because at the end of the day, there's so much else that goes into a movie and post-production that it's like, well, we did our job. So
I mean, you say that, but the comments do what the comments do.
truth. And that's when you have to just breathe and be like, all right, I will not let this affect me.
You know,
I
this
will
was
ignore this.
someone said this once recently, and I heard it was like, what other people have to say about me is none of my business.
Oh, it's so good. So true.
I've been using that. I think it was RuPaul.
I literally was like, I think a drag queen said that.
Preach. Phenomenal. I want to scroll back up in the comments because I know that this question has sort of already been answered from Mike. What are the usual clearance costs for a single song from a major artist?
Yeah. Well, I get, the first question is what media and how long? Like there are all these terms that go into what you're requesting. Like, do you just need internet only for a year? Or do you need, most TV shows get what we call all media excluding theatrical, which means everywhere except a theater.
Okay.
And I think like if you've heard of the song before, in television, I would say like the basic range is 15,000 and up. If it's really massive, it's going to be up. It could be 30, 35.
Per side or total?
Per side. Yeah. Yeah. If there was a time where it was like 25 a side was top dollar, but I feel like in the past couple of years it's gone up. But film, it really varies because again, depending on the total budget of the film, like if you're working on a $10 million film, you're going to pay less than if you're working on a $75 million film. And that also seems appropriate, right? Like if you're in the Avengers movie, like hopefully they can pay you more than they pay you in theater camp,
Yeah. And if your song is used in the trailer for the Avengers movie, you can add a couple more zeros to that.
Wow. So a song, whoever holds the license to a song, it's not a set price. Like it's
Not at all.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
It's always negotiable. I mean,
Okay.
there's certainly, in different medias, and exactly as Lindsay kind of explained, the like rights and terms and territories and things do have an impact, but it's all negotiable, which can that's both a benefit and a curse, I would say. When you're working on, let's say, a project with a smaller budget, you might be able to get Billie Eilish for it if she's super into it. And it's like, it's not about the money, right? But
Right.
So being able to negotiate those things versus, plugging it all into a computer and having it spit out the thing that it is. But it also kind of drives us wild, and certainly our filmmakers and our sound mixers when we're racing to get deals done before we have to mix them and release them. So
Okay.
keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. Wait, say that again.
I said it keeps us on our toes.
Oh, keeps you on your toes for sure. And so I'm visualizing the process, and if it's you or you're, you don't really have a team, you indicated, but so you're reaching out to a licensing, a company usually, correct? And then they reach out to the artist, and then a negotiation can begin from there. If for instance, you're trying to sell an artist on a lower budget production to utilize their music.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, if you're, kind of going to the like Billie Eilish example, just since it's a little easier to explain. If we want to use, the Billie Eilish recording of Bad Guy, we need to clear the master recording with the record label distributor, and then we need to clear the kind of composition, the music and lyrics that represents the songwriters portions with their applicable publisher or publishers. There can be many.
Okay.
in order to use the song, you need 100% approval on both the master recording and on the composition. If
Okay.
one person that has 1% says, no, thank you, I don't want to be involved, you can't use it
Okay.
if everyone else agrees. So part of the fun is you have to get everyone to agree to the use in the first place, but you also have to get them all to agree to the rights and terms that you need and the fee that you can afford to pay. So sometimes that means you're going to, a major record label or major publisher. Sometimes you're dealing with the individuals themselves. It all depends on where that ownership for both of those pieces that Lindsay and I have already referred to colloquially as sides, where that
Okay.
resides. So you might be going to a manager to get it done, or you might be going to the artist who's also the single songwriter, and you just need to talk to them and work it out.
Okay. And I'm sure as these negotiations are happening during varying phases of the production process, are you supplying who you're speaking with script pages or a version of the cut, where the scene is going to be? Like, what is it, or is it just strictly
Tempting them to
a
sign on.
question for them? Yeah.
Generally, there's kind of a template of the main information you need to provide, including like, how long the use is, a scene description of exactly how you're using that, because the context absolutely matters. So you have to fully explain the nature of how you're using at the time. And we also call the nature of the use, is it, diegetic, non-diegetic effectively? Is it, something that someone is singing or on camera or not? We have different terms we use for it, but just to make it a little more relatable, you're providing all of that. Sometimes you are being asked by the, whoever owns the rights to it, whether it's the artists, the songwriters, or their representatives. They may ask for script pages. They may ask to see the scene, the music in the scene exactly as it's being used. As a whole, you don't open with that. You don't just say, hey, here it all is. It's more, here's everything in writing in an email or a PDF file.
Okay.
In some cases, though, if something is a little bit more involved and requires a little work and the music supervisor feels it might be helpful, especially to get it done, we may start with like, okay, we're going to offer them the scene and have that ready to go. We're going to have the script pages ready to go. In some cases, I've had to have, my filmmakers write a letter to help better explain it and kind of plead a case. Sometimes that ends up being helpful, or even like, here's the release plan for the project, so that they, that comes up more with like independent films where there's an explanation of how you're trying to use the film and when you're planning on releasing it in case that's relevant.
Okay. Well, wow. Okay. So, I mean, I'm again referring to now the long list of things you said that you do in your field. And so I'm like, okay, we've covered, what's might be the more hot topic, how much does it cost to license a song? And do you get to meet Billie Eilish? But the, some of the other things that stood out to me were, okay, the idea of creating original material, and having your hand in that process in some way. So let's talk about that for a little bit, because that's exciting. You're meeting new artists, or maybe just, a very specific type of artist. And do you find that your role gives you creative, permission?
Yeah. So I'm like, I really love, and this, not every project gives you a chance for original music, and some projects are all original music. And it's something I've worked on more recently in the past couple of years, and I like super love it. I think in another world in another life, I wanted to be a songwriter. So I love being part of that creative process. And sometimes you're more involved and sometimes you're not. Sometimes it's just like I worked on a film called Love at First Sight that was out on Netflix last year, and we found a cover of I Want to Dance with Somebody by this artist, Morgan Harper Jones. And she just anyway, the cover already existed. It worked really well in a scene. And so we asked for new music from her and ended up finding, using another song in another scene. And so I said to my co-music supervisor, I was like, oh, it's almost like she's the voice of the main character. And we had a moment where we couldn't find a song that was nailing what was happening. And we were like, so why don't we go ask Morgan to create something? So we, talked to her managers and Zoomed with her and had her create a song for the moment like the plot is like these two people meet on a flight and then get separated at customs, and like, will they ever see each other again? So that moment they get separated, we had her write a song for, and then so we ended up like, and then it worked, and so we ended up doing a soundtrack with her label, and as like part of that she threw in a cover of Video Killed the Radio Star, which we used the original version in the film, so it kind of like tied it all in. So there's something where it's like that, it's, you know, it's finding an artist you like and just asking them to do something additional, or it can be my colleague Laura Webb and I worked on Nickelodeon's Monster High the movie, which is kind of in that like Descendants world where every song, like the characters sing songs and those songs express exactly what's happening in the plot. So everything is original. We're having songs. So like this is like we get a script and the script will literally be like, Claudine is singing a song about arriving at her new school and how much she feels like herself, right? So we write a very detailed description and go out to like songwriters and we're like, okay, can you write a song that would say all this, right? And that was also a tricky one because it was like, well, Claudine needs to say this and Frankie needs to say this and so needs to say that. And then you get demos back and you kind of pick which one you want to go with, and then you know, give notes, right? Because like maybe you really loved the first verse and chorus, but like verse 2, like what Draculaura is saying, like makes no sense. We need her to say XYZ. So, or like, and we need a bridge here and like a breakdown for these dancers here. So you really get to like dig in and craft a song for what your scene needs. And so that's obviously like the super intensive version of original music, but super fun.
Wow. So that's
you are part of songwriting there at that point. I feel you're just in that. That's such a creative process, and I'm sure it does entail a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, which is fun. And like, you know, honestly, like Zoom makes things easy. You can like hop on a Zoom and talk to the songwriter and then like hop on another Zoom and talk to the director and get feedback. And that's actually like, you know, a project where our feedback on songs, it was the music supervisors, the script writers, the director, executive producer, and the choreographer. Because the choreographer is thinking, oh, I need a breakdown here for this dance moment, or like, I need to get this person from this room to this room. So can you give me four seconds of something, you know? So it's really interesting to see like the kind of needs each part of production has when it comes to like a musical.
100%. And then I'm sure that the full version that's then on like the soundtrack you buy on iTunes or something that reflects just, I mean, a little bit differently than what is reflected in the show.
Yeah, sometimes it's the same, and then sometimes, yeah, it might just be like minus that breakdown or whatever. Yeah.
Have you two worked on mini musicals? Like straight up musicals?
Heather worked on Glee. I was actually wondering.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's right. You're right. I forgot that.
Was the chaos of Glee, like how was that in all those songs?
I mean, you certainly picked the right word to use. It was a bit chaotic. I mean, I tend to say, you know, I was very fortunate to work on Glee really from the second the script was greenlit, basically, all the way through. I had left the company where we were working on that before the last season. So I worked on all the first 5 seasons of the show. And being a part of something that ultimately was just kind of lightning in a bottle and just an absolute worldwide cultural phenomenon was madness. Equally madness was, you know, executing it every single day, figuring out how to get it executed every single day. So with something where you're doing a musical like Glee as an hour-long network TV show is very different than likely how it gets approached if you're working on a film, on a 2-hour film that's a musical. Because we had to deal with that musical week after week after week on effectively a normal network 8-day shooting week per episode. So we really had to have the full music team built out on a much grander scale than if you just had one musical moment in an episode of a television show. So that meant having a music producer, you know, basically working full time on the series, who also had a part, in that case, his partner was working out of Sweden while he was based in LA. We had an entire team of music and vocal contractors to help create, help work with the demos and help fill out the tracks. The band that you saw in Glee was like always the same kids musicians week after week after week. Like that was a cast part that was being played by real musicians so that they could learn those songs on the fly and then be there on set as needed to execute them. The choreographer was highly involved because, just exactly as Lindsay was describing, the choreography in those moments matters too and plays a part into how the track needs to be built out. So, I was working with the music supervisor. I was the music coordinator on it, working on the music supervisor, PJ Bloom. So we were involved in creative discussions and then, trying to get all these songs cleared very quickly and trying to explain these massive copyrights that we need the rights to with often very little information because we didn't always have the benefit of having the full script in advance, but we needed to get the songs cleared because we needed to have the demo. The music producer needs to make the demo, and the demo needs to get to the actors to learn in order to record, but they also need to learn their lines and they need to learn the choreography. So the entire process was absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Jokingly say that I lost years of my life working on that show because of the sheer volume of stress I had on a daily basis. But, it was an incredible experience that I learned so much about the craft by being a part of something like that.
Like that, yeah. Well, and then it sounds like because you were on American Horror Story too, so you kind of stayed in that family. And Ryan Murphy, he really does music. Seems like it's just such a huge part of his life in general, but it's such an impactful segment to all of his series.
Oh, 100%. He's certainly one of those filmmakers and creators that has a strong musical vision that's essential to, every single story he's telling.
But he just gets to be the guy that's like, okay, do that. And then you're like, okay, I'll do my best.
As a whole, you always want to make your filmmakers and your teams happy. That is the job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys did huge work on Glee. I mean, as a personal thank you to you and your team, that show introduced me to so much music. My brother and I grew up really sheltered, and that seriously blew my world open. So
100%.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We have a question on here from Jessa. She says, it might not apply to the experts here, but are there avenues for someone to take who writes song lyrics, but is missing the whole musical element? If this is something you two feel you can answer.
I mean, I can certainly put out an answer, which I would say there are plenty of terrific, very famous lyricists through the years who have achieved massive success, and I feel like many of them do so by partnering with someone who is really good at the musical elements. So my recommendation would tend to be to have a partnership with someone who excels in that space, and then you get to collaborate together. Lindsay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say the same thing. And when we hired all the songs that were picked on Monster High, the music producers behind them also produced our vocalists. For that kind of thing, it was kind of part of the package when you were expected to produce the track when you got it. But they definitely, some of the songs are written by 3 people and only one of them's the producer, so getting with good producers or other songwriters is key.
Awesome.
Great response. Great ideas. Because yes, collaboration is it's the way to go. And that's, how it might feel a little worrisome or nervous to try to find somebody, but that's how we do it. We love collaboration and community on Groovy and just in general. This whole industry is a team. We have a raised hand from Marcy Brown. Go ahead and join us whenever you feel like it, Marcy.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Heather and Lindsay. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thanks for having us.
My head is spinning. It's so dense. There's so much. You guys do so much, and there seems to be different facets of what a music supervisor does. But what my real question is, is this being taught the right way? I mean, I'm asking this because I went to film school and I know what my answer is, but in regard to your craft, is this being taught the right way in film school?
That's a good question. I feel like, I teach in the music business school. I don't teach in the film school. But I do know that, last year, we were actually, that might have been part of the music. There's a music scoring class that we were able to do kind of like a crossover with our class and their class, because composers and music supervisors work well together. But my guess is that it's lacking. Which is part of the reason we are here and talking with y'all tonight, is because a lot of times people don't know what the consequences are to writing in someone quoting a lyric, or how much assistance they could need when making their film. So yeah, I haven't gone to film school, so I don't totally know the answer to that question, but we should go teach there.
Yeah, I mean, I would, I didn't take in, I was ultimately in the music school was my major at USC, but certainly they are, known for having a terrific film school. And I took the intro to film class, and at no point did we talk about music in there. You talked about, the importance of the script and mise en scène and all these other things and lighting, but we never talked really about music. And certainly from, doing this job for nearly 2 decades and all the different filmmakers at different levels of the industry that I've worked with, it can be a bit of a surprise, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, how little they really know about the intricacies of music. They know it's important to them. They love music. They want to use it, but how it applies in order to execute it in their projects is where I find that there is a bit of a lack of education, which is exactly why it's nice being able to have a platform like this to talk with folks. Is I do think it's something that is kind of likely missing from film school. I think there's likely discussions of music as a whole, and certainly underscore, the work that a composer is doing, but not all the work that is involved with music writ large, that is kind of exactly as we mentioned at the top, everything that touches music on the production, that's what should be taught as well, not just the underscore as a singular component that's still essential.
I completely agree with you. As someone who went to film school, and I'll just leave that right there, but now as an independent producer, and I read a script where it says, and they turn the radio on, but they're right, guys, but they're writing in some 1960 Chevy truck or something. And the first thing I think of course, because I'm on the production side, is, okay, does the picture car person know that we have to put a radio in the truck, and to make sure it looks like it's actually quote unquote working, or it's going to be a source for music? Does it light up? Does it have to turn stations? I mean, but I don't even have the depth to think about everything that you're talking about, because when I do a budget, I'm just slugging in, as you guys probably know well from the production side, a number that will be divided up in many different ways as we get down there, because I don't know all the details that you guys do. And I wish you were teaching, I wish I could sit on in your class, because I feel like I am, even at this state in my career, I hardly have scratched the surface of music supervising.
Well,
that's where the thing I would certainly say is, I think part of the importance there is knowing that you need a music supervisor.
Right, exactly. And then they
bringing
can
them on as early as possible, because you don't have to know what number to plug in to estimate for the, you know, the music use in that truck where there's radio source. We know that. Let us do that. But what we know, if we're brought in early enough to read the script, is we're going to flag that that's going to be a music moment that we need to estimate, and we'll have a sense from reading the rest of the script. If there's more of these scripted moments in there, we'll put a rough, you know, estimated budget together that we then send to you as the producer and say, all right, you're estimating, you know, made up numbers, $10,000 for your music budget. There's all this music in this script. We actually are estimating that's going to be closer to $100,000. And then we're able to have a conversation to make adjustments while we're still in pre-production.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is the lesson. The number one lesson is to get people in early enough to have a say, to comment, to give their, you know, their advice, their expertise, because they've been doing it for decades. This is what really matters and makes a difference in how to, you know, do a budget and a production run efficiently and well, and which serves the director.
100%. And it's just, it goes to show that I mean, if you take a step back, and unless you're watching a silent film, but the importance and the impact that music has in every single television episode, every single movie, like why wouldn't you bring the professionals on as early as possible to make sure it is as impactful and has that punch that you need to evoke that emotional response that you are, that vision is meant for. And so, yes, bring you on early and earlier than you would ever think, because at the end of the day, like, it's just going to benefit your production.
And slight add-on, even in silent films, there's music. You know, silent film was really the, you know, the origin of the role of a music supervisor, just historically speaking.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
We just got deep here, man.
Yeah. Seriously, down to the very origins. Ah, well, ladies, we have one more question from Dan that's going to be kind of related to what we've been talking about. And then I do want to segue us into, you know, maybe the last 15 minutes of our conversation talking about, you know, the organization, the guild that you two are, you know, serving as the president and the vice president of. So let's let Dan join as a speaker for a second, ask his question, and then we'll shift the conversation.
Come on, Dan. Thanks for being here, Dan.
Hello. Wow, what a wonderful space to be in. You know, this is just phenomenal. So I put yeah, like this, like I always love like finding more of my people. But I put kind of a maybe convoluted and trivial question in the chat. You can, or, you know, maybe I just wanted to give more of a, you know, audience friendly bird's eye view question about the lengths of contracts from a composer side. So film composition was kind of my first career before I got into teaching and a bunch of other stuff. And it's still something that I do passionately and a lot. And Marcy, I just have to say what you brought up was such a good question, you know, of that how do we equip? So, you know, I'm in the education realm as well. And I'm trying to now coach a few people who are students in the LA and Hollywood area on like where to go to get the best, you know, the best representation and find the best possible placements for their music. So back in the day when I was doing it, it was like around the time that Glee was being aired, it was a whole different landscape. And I'm just curious, where is the best place to direct people now to start, you know, from the composer side and from the songwriter side? Where do we send them?
To learn about it or to be represented?
To make the connections, you know, and so that's one of the things that I find, you know, even having gone through post-secondary education a few times, I still don't find that it equips a lot of students for this very practical, like boots on the ground set of, you know, protocols. And like, where do I start? Say I'm a songwriter and I want to be placed in a film. How do I start that process?
Well, one place to start, so it kind of like ties in with talking about the Guild a little bit, but one thing that the Guild of Music Supervisors does is we have an education conference. Usually we've been doing them in August, and they're just like a day-long education conference in LA, and lots of panels that are geared towards songwriters, composers, and existing and rising supervisors. But it's also a great place to like connect. Like you never know who you're going to sit next to, and you never know who you're going to like grab lunch with. So that can be a great place to start. If you are a songwriter or a musician, finding a good person to represent your music and pitch it to music supervisors is key. I think a part of that though is like being really comfortable with who is representing you. So obviously they're like I probably go to certain companies and Heather probably goes to different companies, and there's probably some overlap. I don't know if you can like see who pitched a song, be like, oh, Virgin River used a song and I have music like that. Like, I don't know if you can figure that stuff out. I do think like I am very close with Rob Seals, who runs the Songwriting School of LA. So at least like once a year, I do a class for him, and that is a great community of songwriters coming together and again, a little bit more education, but that's hopefully very like hands-on. I'll send him like a representative from Sync Music to go speak, or Charles from Blue Buddha. So there are a lot of sync reps who speak at UCLA Extension classes too. And then like doing things like you're doing right now, coming to this panel, like that's good stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of the AIMP, which is the Independent Music Publishers Association, I believe. That might be a good place to start. I know I've done listening sessions for them sometimes. This is a very long answer. I'm sorry.
Well, you're providing a lot of different options though, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And that I think to sum up that answer, it is like there's so many options that you can get yourself out there, but at the end of the day, it's you got to get yourself out there and just either do your research and connect or network, or just And as you were speaking to, I think it was Jess's question earlier too, just find a collaborator. And please step on my toes if I'm trying to answer into a non-answer, but connect and network and just keep searching.
And one thing I just like behind all of that, I think passion speaks for itself. Like, whether it's in the music, right? You can really tell when a song is authentically whatever type of emotion it is. Like you hear Adele, Someone Like You, and you're like, that girl is hurting, right? So I think, passion in when you're creating music, passion for a project, like, I was nervous about being the Felicity stalker crazy person when I found Jenna Madonna, but the person who connected us was like, no, like lean into it, it's much more interesting. It feels good to be like, oh, you love this, or like you have a song that really matches the same style of music, like then that's a good home for you.
Yeah.
It's been an hour. I'm like, am I still making sense?
No, that's beautiful. And it's a beautiful segue into just like, if you are, creating from your heart, from your passion, then, and that is authentic, then the pieces will fall into place. That person that you will, that is meant to produce that song or put that in the movie or just get you that agent is going to find you because you're leading that path of authenticity. And so just keep doing what you love and what emotion serves you best in whatever thing you're working on in your life or going through, and make the music, and the pieces, the puzzle will complete itself.
Well said, Chad. Thank you. Well, you two, we've got a little bit of time left, but as I touched on earlier, I'd love to from your words, from your lips, hear some words about the Guild. The music. Let me get the correct. The Guild of Music Supervisors. Yes, I was going to say the Music Supervisors Guild, and I was like, that's not exactly correct. So the Guild of Music Supervisors. So, if you wouldn't mind speaking about this, I know it can perhaps be controversial, but my brother and I are under the understanding the music supervisors, they are not unionized, and this is not something that they prefer. So, if you have any insight to either of those, we'd love to to hear from you about it.
Yeah, so the Guild of Music Supervisors is an advocacy group, kind of similar to what like the Grammys is. You know, MusiCares is their like their charity arm. We don't have a charity arm, and we are also not a union, which is a different status. So, you know, we are, you know, music supervisors, gosh, about like 15 years ago came together and we're like, you know, if it's we're constantly overlooked, or people think we just make cool playlists, anybody can do your job. And obviously, and hopefully tonight we've demonstrated that there's a lot more to it than that. And you know, there have been a lot of changes in the industry. You know, most music supervisors work freelance. There are some people who work at like Disney or Amazon and have in-house studio jobs, but most of us are out here, we're freelance, and we don't have healthcare and we don't have pension. We have to go get all that stuff ourselves, and we are paid a flat rate. So, you know, when a project is supposed to be 6 months and suddenly turns out to be a year and a half, like sometimes we're not paid anymore unless we actively fight and ask to be paid more. We don't have the protections that a lot of other people on the crew have, like being paid weekly or getting paid overtime. So yeah, we tried to unionize with IATSE about a year and a half ago, and the National Labor Relations Board. I'm giving like the Cliff Notes overview version, but determined that we are independent contractors and therefore are not able to do that at this time. And that was not a decision we didn't think it was going to go that way. And we think that a lot of the way some studios treat us are not as independent contractors, or more as employees. So, you know, we're out here trying to figure out, you know, in the absence of a union, what can we do to help better music supervisors in the meantime? And part of that is education, you know, just letting people know what we do, that we're out here, that we can be a really important part of storytelling, and that we're also like humans. And I know like Heather and I have done a lot of work in TV, and the whole like, you know, I used to work on 24 episodes of One Tree Hill a year, and when you got paid per episode, that was amazing. But now I work on 10 episodes of Virgin River in the same amount of time and get paid, you know, half as much. So that's a bummer. So, you know, but even like most of our showrunners don't necessarily realize that we're not protected, or that we're not a union. So that's the story.
That is the story, and it's a sad story. And I'm wondering, so as you said, awareness is key, and because I had no idea, and I'm sure a lot of people in the industry don't. And so, you know, spreading that awareness. And is there anything else that, like, you know, aside from your team, that we could do to, you know, assist and try to get, you know, you guys unionized, or at least, you know, health insurance?
Well, certainly, if anyone has some ideas, we're open to any ideas of how to execute these things. You know, I think, you know, certainly the education part really is important, and it may seem more simplistic, but, you know, something that Lindsay and I talk a lot about and with other members of our community is the importance to talk about these things. You know, it was very much this thing that was really out there as, you know, not something to ever bring up. And, you know, our unionization effort really came as a result of, you know, being left behind during the pandemic. And then, you know, we've been really feeling the hurt. You know, our community's been feeling the hurt as a result of the pandemic, and certainly the ongoing, you know, the strikes, you know, kind of shutting all of Hollywood down, and really feeling like when the machine of Hollywood is working on all fronts, people are working, you're going gig to gig, and maybe not having these protections, not having, you know, a pension and health insurance. Yeah, that takes a toll, but you really don't notice it until all of that stops, and you just there's no back end. You're not getting residual checks. You're not getting anything, and no one else is out there advocating for you on your behalf in a way that a lot of other organizations were able to do during the pandemic, and certainly the strikes in the last year. And as you know, we're still waiting for the industry to really come back. You know, our members are still really hurting and as there's less work out there, right? So the entire idea of being able to talk about these things, as a result of our effort, more of our folks were able to be vocal about these things. I know I had a lot more conversations with showrunners and with filmmakers and with editors and post supervisors on different projects I was on where they had no idea. And suddenly, like, I saw this thing, tell me more about it. And I'm having conversations on the mix stage about different situations I've been in over the years, or that project I was on for an additional 6 months and I kept working on it, and everyone else is getting paid and I wasn't for that additional time. Like, that's not fair, that's not okay. I had no idea. What can we do, right? So something as simple as being able to have those conversations does raise awareness that hopefully then spreads within our industry and within our framework and within our community writ large.
100% preach, Heather. And so you have 20 plus people here that have this additional awareness now, and then when we post this conversation to Groovy, so the word is continuing to be out there. And so I have a final question for this. So they turned you down this last time you tried. Is there just going to be retrying every year and trying to see if they change their minds, or is there what is that process?
I mean, AMPTP, who denied us voluntary recognition, and then subsequently Netflix, who also, when we went about the process, we first requested recognition from AMTP, they turned us down, and then we requested it from Netflix, and they also turned us down, and that's what led to the NLRB hearing was specific to Netflix. They, at any moment, so if anyone here has any insight to those folks, they at any moment can recognize us. At any point, we can be recognized. But I think realistically, that's not likely to happen. So, changing the nature of, the factors that led to those decisions, different decisions within Hollywood can certainly play a part. But at any moment, they could decide, yeah, we're good. We're gonna recognize you now. It's just not.
Well, that's
yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is a naive question, but what is the harm in recognizing music supervisors as part of a union? Is there
money?
Yeah, money.
I believe the answer at the end of the day is this little thing called greed.
We don't have to dive into that. Man. Well, we have the saying is going through the industry of thrive in 25, and so I am continuing.
All right, I like that. Let's do it.
Exactly, yeah, and I think the intention that we all put behind that too, like if at the end of the day, if the collective believes that 2025 is going to be a shitty year, then it's going to be a shitty year. But if we believe that,
I think that was the first curse word ever on Groovy Chats.
As I said it, I realized that too. So I think we're in a PG-13 room.
I think that's still PG-13 rating. Where's the producer?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm just glad it wasn't me, because I'm actually more surprised that I wasn't the one that dropped it.
I will say it felt good to say it just based on what I was referencing that S word for.
Marcy says you get a pass. We're still PG-13.
Man, but yes, to finish that thought, if we set the intention for Thrive in 25, then that collective energy will help that become a reality. And so if we all just, think positive, and at the end of the day, that takes more than just thinking. We have to take action, but thinking begins the whole process.
Was there
Namaste.
You have a whole room, right? Yeah, he's a yoga instructor.
Yeah, I was like,
But he's speaking truth, and I appreciate what he's saying, and you do have a room full of supporters here, and I'm excited to just share this episode on Groovy and have the membership base there have access to it, because it's an unfortunate truth that many of us just have no clue about, that y'all are not part of the club in that kind of way.
You are part of the club, but you're not being recognized for it.
Well, 100%. What I'll certainly say is, if anyone's budgeting the line item for music supervisors, please increase it. Add an extra zero. We'll appreciate it.
I love it.
Done. Our work is done here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Heather and Lindsay, is there anything else from either of you you'd like to add, to this conversation before we start to wrap things up?
I mean, I was just going to say a little bit about, if anyone here is an aspiring music supervisor or a musician looking to get their music placed, or, a composer, that the guild does do some educational panels throughout the year in addition to our like 1-day conference. We also have an awards it's going to be in February this year, celebrating our craft. And then we also do like think drinks and stuff. So we try to do networking. We, if you're not a music supervisor, you can also be a friend of the guild and get discounts to all those events and stuff. So that's another way to get involved.
I'm gonna.
So thank you.
Of
appreciate
course.
that, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm looking. We posted earlier to the Nest the link, clickable link to the website for the Guild of Music Supervisors. So that is your resource. Please follow that, and you'll find on the the heading, one of the options is their events, and so you can see their like active calendar, and the awards is listed here, and there's also, I'm sure, a reach out options, how to contact them and just to get involved, or how to support.
Yeah, we love volunteers too. So, and actually, we're I don't think we've announced it yet, so maybe this will be the first place. But we should be having a panel in the next 2 weeks about music in political campaigns, which is certainly a hot topic right now.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I love that. I do if you have time for one more question, Mike Gertz has been just very
Yeah.
our chat a lot. So, and I want to honor this question as quickly as you can answer it. Is there any apprehension, or do you have any thoughts about AI and music supervision?
Ooh, I'll take this one.
Buckle your seatbelts. Yeah.
I'll take this one. I would say the honest answer is a little yes, but also no. I think I certainly have apprehension about AI kind of writ large as it applies to our society, and certainly in creative spaces. I'd much rather AI help me do my dishes and laundry versus taking on creative endeavors. But I think certainly I feel like we've explained enough of just how broad and this job and this craft of music supervision vision really is, that there's a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience and expertise that's needed on a daily basis to be able to service the needs of our productions and our filmmakers, and AI can't do that. And ultimately the joke that I can make here is, well, for AI to take over our jobs, our filmmakers are going to need to know exactly what they want. The studio is going to need to know exactly what they want, and I think enough of us that have worked in production know that that's not always the case.
Yes.
So that's the joking answer to give. But AI can't watch a scene and know how music is impacting it and how you need to make a change to better address the notes that you're receiving. AI can't do that. That's something that you need an experienced music supervisor to be able to watch that scene, to hear the feedback from your team, to say, what's there isn't working. We don't understand why it's not working, and then presenting options.
So you need a human with a soul and a consciousness.
Yeah. It's weird how that's like kind of an important part of the gig. I always kind of say music is the soul of the film, of the TV series. Like, it really is the heart of it all in a way. And that's not to take away from any of the other crafts, but it just adds that extra dimension, right? If you ever watch something without, a film without music, it's a very different experience.
100%.
Yeah.
And
True.
you have to have that same sensibility and sensitivity in approaching every single scene to understand how do we, the main question you ask when evaluating a single scene, and by asking like your filmmakers and yourself, is how do we want the audience to feel here?
Yeah.
What is it that we're trying to have them? What are we trying to evoke? Are we trying to create a mystery? Are we trying to make them, pull out their heartstrings? Are we trying to hype them up? How do we want the audience to respond when they hear this music against this picture?
Well, that's what they should do on day one of film class, is show a movie without the sound and see if it is suspenseful, or if there's happiness, or whatever it's exactly what you said, whatever the tone that the filmmaker is trying to emote out of the audience. How does it feel without having music? That's how they should start. That's how they should start off the class 101.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Yeah, that's what they should do. Heather and Lindsay, I am so honored to have you guys on on Chatmosa. I feel, again, I want to come work for you. There's so much richness here about how to create a project, TV, film, short, any, commercial, anything. Just the value that you bring to a project is immense. So I feel like you just cracked open another part of my mind as far as being a filmmaker. So I want to thank you so much. And I will be calling from Catchlight. So know that. And I'm always a person who asks lots of questions because I'm super curious about many things. So I wanted to say on behalf of Groovy and Chatmosa, thank you so much for taking the time. It was delightful.
Good. Well, this was fun. Thanks for having us and inviting us on.
Yeah, we're honored to be a part of this conversation and really appreciate all of you for listening and Chad and Cody for asking such wonderful questions. It's been terrific to be a part of this.
Well, fabulous. I mean, yeah, Marcy, Heather, Lindsay, you've summed it up perfectly. Just a little bit more gratitude to everyone who tuned in today and for your guys' questions. It was just a wonderful contribution to this conversation. And this conversation will be available on Croovy's website, either on the homepage or if you have an account on your homepage. If you don't have an account, go ahead and get one today. It's very simple. Sign up is free, Groovy.com. And we'll be sending a little thank you email with information about our upcoming episodes. So please stay tuned for that. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Cody?
No, everyone has said such beautiful things. I am just going to close by saying I love you all and tune in next time.
Tune in next time. Thank you again, Heather and Lindsay and Marcy and everyone. Yeah, we'll chat to you soon on Chatmosa.
Thank you,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.